Greetings, Cap fans, and welcome to episode 28 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast. I am your host, Rick Verbanis, and as always, I am joined by my partner, my co-host, Mr. Bob Lucius. Bob, hi there.
Dude, I can barely get any words out today because I'm just so super depressed that we're here to discuss the final episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I feel like my best friend's gone.
I know, it's bittersweet. It's one of those things. I was so looking forward to episode 6 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, the finale, because we just want to see the storylines get tied up. We want to see what happens with these characters that we've become more emotionally attached to. But at the same time, I was like, but it's gonna be the last one, and here we are. And but we're here to talk about it. We're here for all you people that are also feeling the same pain that we are. Consider this your therapy. We're going to talk you through and get you through this. And then joining us for this episode is Mr. John Waller Sewell, who was he also joined us on the episode 22 where we reacted to Falcon and Winter Soldier number 3. So we brought him back for number 6. Hi, John.
Hey, Rick. Hey, Bob. It's great to be here, guys. I appreciate you bringing me back.
Well, you know what? Money speaks. So thanks for that huge huge donation.
And being the only one who responded. So thank you.
Yeah, we tried to have pretty much we went down the list. And so, John, we appreciate you being available.
Well, next to last is better than last.
That's true. It's kind of like, where did I leave my sunglasses? Oh, it's always the last place I look. I guess no, that doesn't work here. Okay.
Bob being the good co-host there, laughing at your bed.
That's a good one, Rick.
Oh, that's right. Why do you think Bob's still on the show? Okay. All right, we got a lot to get into here. So one world, one people is the name of this episode. And you know what? I don't know. Maybe we should just break this down. First of all, if you're listening, if you haven't watched episode 6 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, spoiler alert, we're going to get into that. We're also going to probably touch on some things that have happened in the series. So just throwing that out there. But and also stick around for the predictions because I'm just itching to talk about what I think is going to happen following this series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But we'll get to those. So I don't want to spoil anything. But we'll save those for the end. But as far as let's talk about this episode. I want to talk about it in two ways. I want to talk about the main story, which was like that one battle that seemed to last 30 some minutes. And then I want to talk about all the epilogues afterwards. And I'm referring to them as epilogues because it seemed like each character got touched on. It didn't like advance the story. It was kind of like an epilogue with this character, an epilogue with this character. So we'll just talk about those after. But let's get into that first 30-minute battle because that was something else. We were all excited to see what was in the case from Wakanda at the end of episode 5. Now, look, it's the internet, right? We kind of know what it's going to look like, especially if you're an idiot like me and you look at the action figures they're putting out, because they have to do these way in advance, right? So that the timing comes out. So if you saw the Falcon action figure of him in his Captain America garb, you knew what he was going to look like. But if you're not an idiot like me, when you first see that costume in the beginning of this episode, when he shows up and he comes through the glass, right, with the shield, what did you think of Sam as Captain America?
Look, man, I read the comics arc when Sam became Cap a few years ago. I saw some of the teaser images you're talking about. I don't care. He showed up crashing through that window, popped up right I got chills.
Yeah.
I was so there for it.
And then the guy said, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm Captain America."
That's right. He owned it.
He did. He said exactly what we've been waiting for this whole time.
That's right. That's right. And when one of the other people later on I know we're skipped, but just real quick, the guy sees him and he's like the Black Falcon. They do that callback, and the guy next to him is like, no, that's Captain America. Chills again. Loved it. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just love the. I mean, let's face it, that uniform was very comic accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they got all the details down. You don't see that happen a lot. There's always some tweaks or something, but I think they paid a lot of attention to trying to make that very, very true to expectations. So
yeah, I thought they did a great job.
That.
100%. Yeah, very much reminiscent of what was in the comics. So I know there were some people who I read were like, well, the uniform was a little, I don't know, they didn't care for it, but I think most of us, especially us comic book fans, really loved it because it was very accurate. Now, just like anything else in the MCU, is it going to stay that uniform? Probably not, right? I mean, Captain America wore a different uniform. It seems like every time he was on the screen, there was always a variation. So we'll probably see a variation of this. So for the limited amount of time that we got to see him in Captain America uniform, the fact that it's starting out as the comic version, big thumbs up.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, Rick, again, I know I'm going to get beaten up about this, the fact that I admit to being a member of other Facebook groups, but I'm in other Facebook groups, man, and they're talking about how they're so excited about their kids dressing up as Falcon Captain America, Sam Wilson Captain America this Halloween.
So, yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. That really probably
both,
will be
both Sam Wilson as Captain America and Isaiah Bradley Captain America. So there's lots of folks that are looking forward to that this year.
It's funny you should say that, though. I didn't even think about Halloween, but if it's anything like my kids, they get excited about something in the month of March and April, but by the time October comes around, they've already had 4 other costume ideas. So we'll see.
Well, that's how it is in my family, but I start planning around now. So for my kid, and because he can't make up his mind, and so by gosh, I'm going to decide for him.
Yeah. And what do you dress up? What are you going to be dressed up as, Bob?
No, see, I don't get to do that. So I have to live vicariously through my 11-year-old kid. And so it's just one of the ways that he has to, go along with what I say.
Well, John could probably teach you a few things about cosplay.
Oh, yeah?
I have been known to dress up on occasion, yeah. I even won a costume contest at my work once for Darth Maul. It took me about 2 hours to get ready, but
I remember that picture. That was something else, man. That was really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back to the opening scene. A couple of things, right? So they're at the GRC meeting, and so my prediction, or hope, I should say, I really wasn't thinking it was going to come true, about Arnim Zola. Didn't come true. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. But a couple few cool things were I don't know about you guys. I got a little thrill when Bucky starts walking through the barricade and they're like, Sergeant Barnes. I thought that was so cool. I was like, yes, he has respect. Yes. Like, he's got some respect. And then of course we see Sharon show up, and unexpectedly. So I guess that was the backup that Sam said was coming. And
she walked through the barricades too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she had a mask on. She had one of those little shield face hider thingers, right?
You're right.
Yeah. So then, the Carly reveals the plan. Sam very, very smartly understands what they're trying to do. They're trying to move them out. So he's trying to get everybody to stop doing that. They're all split up. Carly gets on the phone with Sam. And man, I don't know about you guys. I was a little insulted for Sam when Carly says, I'm trying to fight for something bigger than myself. Have you ever tried to fight for something bigger than yourself? It's like, Carly, please, really? Who are you talking to here?
Yeah, but we're talking about a series. All right, let's get into one of the flaws. This is a series that has repeatedly kind of downplayed Sam. I mean, I know he got elevated to the Captain America position and all that other stuff. I think it was Bob actually that was even talking about like the episode where they went to Madripoor, where it just seemed like Sam was getting lost in the shuffle. And
well, I'm going to stop you here though, John. It was Bucky who was on the phone with Carly, not Sam.
Oh, you're right.
And so he got played.
That's true. You're right. I apologize.
He got played. And so maybe I misspoke. Maybe I said Sam by accident. I don't know. Sorry. I apologize. But no, she got on the phone with Bucky. My bad. And I thought it was great where Bucky responded and says, that's all I ever do. And I fell twice. And I was thinking, oh yeah, so I thought it was a little insulting to Bucky, but anyway, now I know you're a big Batroc fan, John, right? That's one of your guys.
Yes.
What did you think of that initial fight between Sam as Captain America versus Batroc?
It was one of several things in this episode that very clearly distinguished Batroc in the MCU from Batroc in the comics, because we got this at the very tail end of last episode. Batroc telling Carly, "I just want to kill Falcon. That's what I'm in here for." Very unlike Batroc in the comics. Not after his main goal is not killing. He's not revenge or vengeance. He's a mercenary. It's business, and he's got that flair, I guess, if you want to call it, in the comics, that just seemed to be missing in the MCU overall. I appreciate the occasional, color code on his uniform being an acknowledgement, but it's just not the same. So it was a little bit of a disappointment, but not nearly as much as the disappointment as when we skip ahead just a little bit. And I know we're trying to take this chronologically, but when he meets up with the power broker there and he starts trying to extort her for more money, you're talking about Batroc's a man of honor in the comics. It's its own moral code. He'll use it to justify all kinds of things, but once he's agreed to something, he's going to keep his word. Yeah. So jacking her up for 4 times the money just to keep his mouth shut, I was like, oh man, you deserve every bit of the tail whooping you're about to get. And he got it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. There are certainly differences between the comic book version and the MCU version of Batroc. He's a mercenary, but you're right. He was after revenge.
And he's a little underpowered.
Yeah, that's true. And there's no leaping. There's no fleeping. There's none of that in the MCU. There's just, he's Jean-Claude Van Damme.
But he was using his legs more. I mean, he was doing
the savate kicking.
Yeah,
exactly. But I would have liked a good leap.
Gotcha.
But, I don't want to be negative. I agree with everything that you said, John. But when I think of Sam, I mean, I love Sam. Don't get me wrong. But when I think in the cinematic universe, Sam's sort of background, and I wonder, he's not a super soldier, right? And Batroc is supposed to be like the pinnacle of his expertise when it comes to mixed martial arts. And I don't know how Sam stands toe to toe with him.
Well, he had the shield.
He has the shield.
He had the uniform.
But he still was getting kicked around quite a bit. And I wonder what's in that uniform. Maybe that uniform, and that's something I hope they explore at some point, or we learn more about. I don't know the composition of that uniform.
Well, let's talk about that, right?
Yes.
So we know that it's from Wakanda, right? So not only did they make him a new uniform with new wings, but they also gave him a new red wing, which, is really cool to have. I mean, like Red Wing saved the day in a lot of cases, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
you know, when they went rescued that helicopter, the police helicopter that was going down, and the two, you know, Sam rescued one, Red Wings rescued the other. I mean, that was a cool scene. You know, I mean, that was really cool. But you know, I don't know if it was made in Wakanda and it's this really cool battle suit. Does anybody like think like was Shuri, like was she one the one, you know, can you just vision like she was the one who was making it, right? And maybe we'll
Yeah.
see her in the future, and she's like, you know, what'd you think of the suit I made you, you know,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, of course. I'm wondering, is that like vibranium laced fiber or something like that that is allowing him to take a beating like that and keep going? But yeah, I definitely think I definitely hope that we see that Shuri was involved in that at some point. That'd be cool.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. So then we've got Walker. John Walker shows up, you know, during the time where they're driving away, and he's Morgenthau, and then you see him. God, he's got such a distinctive walk, you know, when he's walking up, as he's trying to still be Captain America, right? He made the shield, he got the uniform, and he basically takes on Carly, and man, you knew she had it coming when she said, you know, listen, sorry, I didn't mean to uh, kill Lamar. You know, he didn't matter. It's like, oh, you just asked for it now, and his reaction to that. What'd you guys think of that scene?
Yeah, again, I was wondering, where did Carly get training? Because she was going toe to toe with John, and John's had, obviously pre super soldier serum, right? He's had lots and lots of hand to hand training, combat training, and man, those folks were going toe to toe with him, and I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, I was a little too.
I think, obviously for drama purposes,
Yeah. I think they kind of try to do it like, you know, she was running away from him, going into the scaffolding. You know, he had the best of her for the most part, but then, you know, she was able to kind of get higher ground on the scaffolding and swing down and kick him, and then she ran away. So I don't think she like kicked his butt. I think she got one lucky kick into the head and then tried to escape. So you know, should he not have been, you know, had that happen? Sure, with his training, but you know, you're right. You know, you have to advance the story somehow.
True. And he did have that inferior shield that he had tried to cobble together. And that thing got dented up and banged up pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we have Bucky. Bucky saves the politicians that are in the burning truck, and of course, you know, they all get out and they thank him, and it I don't know about you guys, but for a moment there, it looked like he was kind of shocked to be thanked, you know, like he's not used to that, and it was kind of like, oh, you know, this is what it's like to be on this side, you know, and it was a nice a little very small reaction that I picked up on. I enjoyed.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think Sebastian Stan has been an incredible actor portraying this role. I've liked the other stuff I've seen him in as well, but with him, it's all about the nuances.
Yeah.
Yeah, I picked up on that too, Rick. I mean, I think he was like, wow, he's not used to being visible as a hero, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
all his work, even as the Winter Soldier, but also, since leaving that behind, has always been sort of still in the shadows. So I don't think that he's used to that, and that was a little bit of a nice, pleasant shock for him. But yeah, that was a cool moment.
So then we cut back to Sam, who is chasing after the chopper, and it's a great scene. I mean, it's a great scene. All that aerial, battle going on. You. I don't know about you, as a huge Captain America fan, I'm thinking to myself, well, wow, Sam can really just take this to a whole nother level. I mean, it's it's amazing what he can do, especially with the shield now. So then Sam gets hit by the chopper, and while they're over by a construction site, and then these look like these concrete tubes, start to fall, and he goes into the water, and then they start to fall on top, where he was. Very reminiscent of the scene in Iron Man 3, I thought, where when Iron Man and his whole, his mansion on the side of the cliff starts to fall on top of him, and he goes down into the water. So it felt reminiscent to that. And then, of course, he comes out, bursting out sort of like Iron Man did. So I thought that was really, really cool. And I loved his line. When he said, he says, boy, you just earned this ass whooping.
Yeah. Yeah, he was right there on it. I love the whole thing with Redbird, him having forethought. Tell me who's got flight training. He's he's thinking strategy and whatever, but then they really ticked him off.
Yeah. That was a cool scene.
And the cool thing is, you mentioned this. He's operating like Captain America, but in 3D, right? I mean, It's not limited to, of course, Steve Rogers. He's got super great mobility and can leap and jump and swing. But Sam Wilson, Captain America, he's operating in 3 dimensions. Man, he takes to the air as well as the land. So it was pretty cool.
Wouldn't that be more like 2D?
No.
Well, air and land. I was thinking 2D.
I was going to throw in C, but I didn't want to confuse him with right. Navy SEALs. So,
okay.
Since he was I think he was an Air Force pararescue guy.
Yeah.
PJ. So
yes, in the MCU. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So then, Carly decides to sacrifice the hostages in the truck. She tries to send them over the edge. Before I get to that, we have Bucky, who had fallen off the edge, which I thought was a little bit of a surprise, because like when he got pushed and he was going toward the edge and he puts his metallic arm down to grab hold, you figure like every other time he's going to stop and it saves himself, but no, he falls off the edge. And he's down there and he's battling one of the other flag smashers. And then Carly sends the truck, and then Walker makes a choice, right? He makes a choice. It can be, he can save the truck, or he can go after Carly. And he makes a choice where he says, okay, I got to do the right thing. I'm not going to go for the revenge. I'm going to try to save the truck. And some people think, okay, wow, he's redeemed himself. He, he's done something heroic, so therefore he's now a hero. I wouldn't go that far. I would say he made a good choice, and I would say he's on the path to redemption, but he still has, that doesn't make up for any wrong. But I was pleased to see him do that, and I'm glad that happened. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this. I actually was talking with one of our mutual friends and somebody that's recently joined the Captain America comic book fans group, Bethany, about this. And man, she, I'll just tell you, one of her first reactions: unsubtle, pandering, maudlin BS propping up the neoliberal military industrial complex. She just went off on this rant. But more importantly, more to the point, she sent me this.
What did you really mean, Bethany?
Right. She really got into this thing about, did John Walker really earn a redemption arc? And it got me thinking that, again, the delineation between the MCU and the comic books, the story arc that John Walker goes through took years of publishing. And in terms of the reality, we're talking about months, if not years in and of itself, in the 616. to get him from being this on the fringe, shouldn't have been Cap's replacement kind of guy to really kind of coming into his own. And it felt, as far as just the MCU, if you don't have the benefit of the comics, it felt rushed. It felt really, really rushed to me. And so then you have someone who's not quite as versed in the comics lore and is really just relying on the MCU. And they're like, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Mm-hmm. And I think that's got some merit. I think what you're talking about, that he hasn't earned the redemption yet, is great, but it felt like that's what was being spoon-fed to us. Oh, especially when you get to the whole walking off with Bucky and making little quips and everything like that. Oh, it's all fine and dandy now.
Right.
No, it's not.
Right.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a problem with that, and I know others out there really did too.
Interesting. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm not reading it that deep. I agree with everything you said about the sort of the dichotomy between the comic book and the telling of his story and how long that has taken to unfold, and in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I also think John's a complex character. He's not all bad, but he's not all good. And this is a guy that served as a soldier. He's done some terrible things, I'm sure, but he's also done a lot of heroic things. So we can expect that to see that mix of heroicism and the vulgarity of a guy that has been sort of trained and conditioned to focus on mission first, regardless. Sometimes the ends justify the means, and that's his world. And he made that point, in front of the commission to the senator, that they created him this way, as this sort of gross mix between heroic character and sort of dastardly villainous character, where anything goes to achieve the ends. And so I think we saw that there. Plus, it's interesting because Bucky, he's had that background too, sort of, where he's throughout the first four episodes, 5 episodes, I think 4 episodes, he was very much open to taking folks off the field by any means necessary. And Sam kind of had to talk him back from that. So I think there's a little bit of similarity there. And maybe Bucky will, in some way, in the cinematic universe at least, be the guy that helps bring him along in that redemption arc. Who knows?
Yeah, well, that's interesting, Bob. Could be. I mean, if we do skip ahead to that one scene that John mentioned, where they use the app to trick the other flag smashers to come, and there's John and Bucky there. And I'll back up just a little bit, because there was a part right where Batroc, he sends the smokes screen down there, and they all kind of split up, and there's a part there where Walker goes, and it did seem to me a little fast. It's like, oh, all of a sudden Walker, who recently tried to kill them. Okay, let's not forget that he recently did try in that beginning of episode 5, where he did try to kill them, and and all of a sudden they're kind of buddy. Seemed a little forced, but I'll give a nod to the writers here, where I think they address that slightly, because they split up. Walker goes one direction, and Sam kind of looks and looks concerned, and Buck says to him, I got it. And he chases after Walker. So I took that as, look, I'm, especially from Sam, look, I'm not really, thrilled with this, with him being here. And I'm worried. And Buck was like, I got it. I'll chase him down. So I think they kind of approached it there, but I agree with you, John, that it did feel rushed. Now, let me just go back to that scene where they have the app, right? And they show up, and then there's John, and he says, and he quotes Lincoln. He says, mercy bears richer fruit than rich justice, or something to that effect, right? And then Bucky says, it's a great app. I thought that was funny. And then they walk off, and he says, Lincoln, really? And John says, it's a great quote. And he puts his hand on Bucky's shoulder as if we're buddies. And Bucky's like, well, not when you say it. So yeah, it did feel a little forced at a point. Now let's compare this to the comic books, John. Right? You mentioned that it was a long journey in the comics, but I'm going to compare and contrast why perhaps maybe it's okay that John Walker's redemption is a shorter path for a couple of reasons. Let's look at the John Walker of the comics. Okay. Now, John Walker of the comics, and I'm going to read an interview quote here from Mark Grunwald, the creator of John Walker. And back in 1988, he was interviewed in Amazing Heroes, and he said, Walker comes from the point of view, my country, right or wrong. To Steve Rogers, America is a land where you have the opportunity to live up to your potential, to acquire all the things you want out of life, provided you don't step on other people's American dreams to do it. Walker is different. He believes the American dream is to make a mint and then retire, and that's why he got into it. So the Walker from the comics, if you remember, was the super patriot,
right?
And he was into it for the money and the glory, right? I mean, yeah, he did care about his country, but not in the same way or thought process that Steve did. So there's that. Now you compare him to the John Walker of the MCU, Bob. To your point, here he is. This what's the award he got? The Medal of Honor. He got three medals.
Three of them, yeah.
And so he's a completely different character. He was a soldier, and he worked for his country. He wasn't trying to make a buck like the John Walker of the comics. Sure. So they have different intents. Let's just say, right?
Sure.
Now we go back to the comic book version of John Walker. Let me do this first. John Walker of the MCU. What did he do wrong? Well, he killed a defenseless flag smasher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he tried to kill Sam and Bucky.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he almost would have killed one of the other people in the earlier episodes if Lamar had not intervened.
Okay. Now, those are bad things. I'm not saying they're not.
Yeah.
Okay. But you compare him to what John Walker of the comics did. What did he do? Well, when his mom and dad were killed, he snapped and killed a bunch of watchdogs. Right? Watchdogs, for you, if you're listening, you don't know, that was the name of a group of militant people who, soldier wannabes, ex-soldiers, things like that. And they were trying to do their own thing. So he snapped and killed a bunch of them. Then he went after right wing and left wing, who he blamed, which are two characters they refer to as right wing and left wing. They were two characters that revealed John's parents' names, so he blamed them for the death. So I would argue that John Walker's of the comics, his intent was worse than the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he did worse things to try to come back on a redemption arc, as opposed to this John Walker, who, as a soldier, Medal of Honor winner, he snapped when he got the super serum in his blood. Could that have something to do with it? We don't know. So could
Can I call a timeout?
Okay.
Because you're talking about snapping when you got the super soldier serum, but let's not forget, in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episodes, and Rick, you're one of the people that really helps me tune into this stuff about music changes and sound cues and whatever. Repeatedly, I mean, from the very introduction of this character in episode 2, I think it was, where they're really giving us a heads up on what John Walker's about. You hear this sharp, dissonant, almost ringing sound that will show up. And John's registering this expression on his face where he's just like cringing or flinching. He's trying to hold something back. He's already psychologically questionable at the very least. I mean, from the word go. And you've got a real serious problem with him and his ego too. Do you know who I am? And all that stuff like that. It's already there. Just like Lamar says, the super soldier serum just makes you more of who you are. And so it made him more psycho than he already was. And so then...
So hold on, I gotta flag on the field, John. Flag on the field. Right? I think we got to be careful with the word psycho, right? Because as Rick mentions, we're dealing with a substantially different character here in the cinematic universe, and we're talking about a professional warrior, a professional soldier who has seen and done a lot. And and I don't want to go down the road of because I've seen this in other groups, and I've seen other people bring this up, the theory of PTSD and how that could be amplified. But that is different than just being somebody who has no sense of right or wrong, or somebody that is inherently flawed in some way. He is psychologically broken, he's psychologically damaged. And that could have been exacerbated by, of course, the super soldiers here, because it tends to magnify personality traits. And so, that may be, that ringing in the ear, that is a telltale symptom of PTSD, for instance. And so it's interesting that they used that in the way that they did. And I think, that might be something that, that Bucky and, as I mentioned earlier, Bucky and John kind of share in common. And maybe that will bear fruit in the future. Who knows?
Very, very astute points. And I apologize. I used a term that I should not have used. I will back up though and say, going from whatever the roots are in his psychological issues, going from the straight up murder of one of the flag smashers to being not court-martialed, but removed from his active duty, and his blustering over that and having the fit and being committed to, he wants revenge against Carly Morgenthau so much, to all of a sudden just he shows up and he makes that good judgment call, is what you're talking about, Rick. Yeah, it is a good judgment call, but isn't that a little bit of a leap to go from being that unstable, if that's a fair enough assessment, to, okay, no, I've got it, I'm going to make the right call, and this is great. I just feel like, in terms of what we've been given in this show, where he was, it's a really big leap. And it causes me to wonder, because one of the things I've heard and read and whatever is that apparently Falcon and the Winter Soldier as a series got pulled because it was supposed to come out before WandaVision, I believe. It was supposed to be the first. And because of the pandemic in 2020 and some things they had in there, that it went through the butcher mill. It got chopped up, re-edited, re-put together and everything. And that there may be several, not just minutes, but maybe even possibly more hours of plot and story that got and I'm wondering if that's part of it.
Yeah. Well, I just want to, two final thoughts, right? Sure. One is we would expect people who are sort of suffering from this psychological issue to vacillate between making very good decisions and very compromised decisions. So that's not surprising. But the other thing is I would say is, and I think this is sort of in the background to sort of the overall writing of Sam Wilson's character, because we do see that the writers are trying to drive home some messaging here in this series, right? With regard to Sam Wilson and how he's treated and his role in American society, and Isaiah Bradley and that sort of segment of the show. But they're also, I think, making some very powerful messages about about the military and about how soldiers are treated and what's expected of them, but then how they are treated by the government and in some sense by society, or viewed in that way. And I think that was not done quite as thoroughly or quite as carefully as perhaps that first, the Sam Wilson arc.
Okay.
For obvious reasons, Sam's the main character. So
sure.
But you're right. There may be hours or minutes at least of additional footage and story that might have explored that more fully and resolved it better.
Well, Bob, I'm glad you brought up PTSD. As someone who was, in the military for 25 plus years, I know you probably have some personal experience with people that you have served with. And so I respect you bringing this up, and I think it's a great topic. And I think that it is possible that John Walker is suffering from that. He certainly exhibits some tics, if you will, right? That some people could see as a psychological, issue. But it's going to be interesting. Now that said, John, I still agree with you. It did seem a little rushed. And I had that same feeling when I was watching this. Now let's get to the next scene where Sharon is revealed as the power broker. There, I said it, everybody.
It's done. The die's been cast. There's no going back.
And I know we talked about this early on, and it was like, I wonder if Sharon's the power broker. And then, like fanboys do, we start to dig deeper, start to come up with other things. Well, maybe Zemo's playing both sides, and John, you threw out Arnim Zola, which the more I thought about, the more I loved. I even thought maybe Crossbones is still alive. Maybe he's a Madripoor, because in the comics he has some ties there. But it's Sharon. Now, we'll get to the epilogue, the mid-credit scenes at when we get to the epilogues. I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about the fact that Sharon's been revealed as power broker. Now, Batroc, he blackmails Sharon.
Attempts. Blackmail.
And then, Sharon didn't take kindly to that. She shoots him. Carly shoots her. And then Sam shows up. Now, Sam doesn't know the secret of Sharon. The only people who knew the secret are Carly, who ends up dying, and Batroc, which I don't think he's dead. Does anybody think he's dead just because he got shot?
No, she walked out of there with a gunshot wound to the abdomen. So, right? Why not Batroc? Yeah. Why not Batroc? Or why did she?
The only question I would throw out to that effect, though, is she's been revealed as the power broker. She's wanting to keep that under wraps, and she's trained. She knows how to shoot to kill. There's no reason for her not to.
Unless she was getting shot at the time she was pulling the trigger.
True.
Or unless the reason she survived the gunshot wound to the abdomen had less to do with her shooting skill and Batroc's shooting skill than some other reason.
We'll get there.
I know we will.
And don't you beat me to that prediction. All right. So, John, of all people, I thought you would be the person to be like, no, Batroc's still alive. But you're like,
he's jaundiced on this Batroc.
Because he's not the same Batroc.
Au revoir.
Imposteur.
The Batroc of the MCU is, the words that are coming to mind are not suitable for this podcast. We'll just leave it at he's a jerk.
What you're telling me is,
might as well have used machete.
What you're telling me? Oh, right? Boy. What you're telling me, John, is you think the MCU Batroc should take a flying leap?
Yes, I'm just ashamed that I didn't get there first.
Yes. They might as well have used the tumbler. You know.
Right?
All right. So then Sam's fighting Carly, and he won't fight back. I love this. Love this. He's trying to get through to her. I almost said, what a Steve thing to do. But quite frankly, I'm just going to say, what a Captain America thing to do. That he wants to get through to her. He doesn't want to fight her. He's trying to get through. I don't know. I really enjoyed that about him. It just, again, cemented that he's the right man for this mantle.
Yes, and taking a great risk in doing that, because he's going up against somebody that is a super soldier. It at least has the serum pumping through her veins. She's got him outmatched in terms of strength, speed, all of these things, and he's constantly just trying to deflect her blows, keep himself safe, and try to talk her down, which is, as you say, a very Captain America thing, but also, I think, very consistent in MCU, a very Sam Wilson thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, when we first meet him, well, I guess second meet him after we've done the whole thing in Winter Soldier where on your left, when he's actually introduced and what he does, he's meeting with people, dealing with PTSD, soldiers that have a hard time coming back and just reacclimating to society. He's constantly that presence that is trying to bring people down, calm them down, bring them back down to the ground, which is funny because he's Falcon. But just, that's very, I absolutely loved it. And I do think that with what happens immediately next, it has to, even though he wasn't there for everything that came immediately before, it has to put some questions in Sam's head about Sharon.
Yeah, and you're right. He definitely was outmatched. He was trying to deflect, and he was using a shield. I did think it was really cool. Just, little details like the fight scene where he used his wings to dig into the ground.
Yes.
Right. Like to give himself support as he was using his shield because she was pounding on it. That was cool. Right. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was a neat little trick.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that like the guys who did the fight choreography, particularly for Sam, had to incorporate both the shield and the wings. I mean, they did a magnificent job, I think. Just bringing it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw an image on one of the Facebook groups that there was an image of all the stunt people. And hey, hats off. I mean, applause to all the stunt people. They did fantastic work because the fight scenes throughout this entire series were just amazing. The choreography, and the special effects too. I mean, this was, God. I mean, guys, you remember what we had as kids, right? I mean, can you imagine growing up the last 10 years and seeing this, or even for that matter, the last 20 years? You can go back to, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man and the X-Men but man, yeah, it was just overall just a well done series. So Carly she dies in Sam's arms, and then he picks her up and he walks her out. Then he flies down in this really cool symbolic scene,
yeah.
Almost like an angel, coming down with
very
Pieta. Yeah. That was a neat visual. Of course, I'm thinking in the back of my head, she's dead. Sharon's got a bullet wound in her gut.
I thought that
he's the one you carry down. Okay.
Right. Yeah. But that was a good scene.
Yeah. Well, then followed by an amazing scene with the speech. Right. I mean, how can you not have, Captain America, who, especially if you grew up reading Mark Grunwald's run, or even DeMatteis, just reading the speeches that Steve used to give. and him talking to the senators, in front of the press. So everybody's getting this. And, he says, we finally have a common struggle now. And how did it feel to be helpless? If you can remember that and face foes that can erase half the planet, you would know you're about to have the same impact. And then he says, and the senator says to him, well, you just don't get it. You don't understand. And he says, I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes. What don't I understand? And then he goes on to talk. And I will give some credit because they did bring up the point that it is complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, they did raise the question, which you don't have an answer for. What do you do? Somebody comes back after being blipped out for 5 years, and they come back and their family home is now inhabited by somebody else. That's a difficult question to answer, and there are no right answers. But what he said is, yeah, but who's in the room with you when you're making these decisions? Is it the people you're going to impact, or is it just more people like you? And to me, the best part of it was when he said, every time I pick this thing up, he's referring to the shield, I know there are millions out there that are going to hate me for it. Even now, here, I hear it. The stares, the judgment. And there's nothing I can do to change their minds. Yet, I'm still here. No super serum, no blonde hair, blue eyes. The only power I have is that I believe we can do better. Now, that was strong. I you know what? Hats off, Sam. You are Captain America.
That's right. That's absolutely. While you were talking about recounting some of the things he said, I was sitting here thinking, remembering watching that and listening to what he had to say, and just that feeling of Cap. It wasn't even way to go, Sam or Falcon, or way to go, Cap. And that really sealed it, I think, in the story and for so many others, because I mean, on a meta level, he wasn't just Captain America talking to the America of the MCU. That was Anthony Mackie talking to our world, because there was that whole, what is hashtag not my Cap thing that was going around for a while. And yeah, he had a lot of eyes on him in that outfit, carrying that shield, bearing that name on multiple levels.
It's Black Falcon.
Right.
Exactly. No, that's Captain America.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna minor quibble, a little contrarian quibble. I love the speech, but I do think it was just a bit too long. And it went on a long time. I don't know. I didn't time it, but I remember I looked at my son as it was going on, and I could tell he was starting to glaze over a bit, because it just felt like it was a bit too. I mean, I hate to say, I'm going to be the odd man out on this, but it did seem a bit contrived. Like, okay. Rick left. Rick just walked out.
Give him away, Bob.
He just left. What the hell, Rick? Rick walked out.
That was so poignant. Wow, Bob, I got to tell you, that has me really, really giving it a lot of thought.
No, you know what? I've actually heard that as well, that it was too long, and it very much ties in with what you were saying a little while ago, Bob, about this is definitely something that has been written for messaging. And that did feel rather pronouncedly hit home. Now, it hit me right in my home, so I was enjoying the feels of it all. But I guess springboarding off of that, I want to ask the question to you guys specifically, and to the Captain America comic book fan group. What's more important to you in your stories of Captain America and just in general? Is it more important that some kind of message or lesson or truth be conveyed, or is it just that they have to have characters that are consistent and as realistic as superheroes can be?
Why can't we have both? I mean, as a longtime Captain America fan, as someone who's been reading it, every month for the last 40 years, I could tell you that I'm okay with a long-winded speech from Captain America. It comes with the territory. It comes with the uniform. And so I'm okay with a message. Now, do we want the characters? Do we want a cool fight? Yes. Do we want good villains? Absolutely. Do we want to have great action scenes? Of course. But ultimately, what appeals to me about this character is that he stands for more than just the we're going to solve things with our fists, right? And when we talk to J.M. DeMatteis, the longtime writer of Captain America, we talked with him back in episode 13. I highly suggest you all check that out. That was something that he talked about. It's like it can't, every story can't be just we're going to solve things with our fists. And so how do we get there? Well, we get there by talking. So we just got done praising Sam and saying it was such a Sam thing for him to go ahead and try to not fight Carly and try to talk her down. Yet when it comes to talking with the senators, it's different. No, I mean, these are people who can make a decision. Like he said, he said, like, these are people that can make a phone call and can do this with an email. They can do this. And so he's telling it and bringing in real world, right? I mean, this is the world we live in. Now, I get it that sometimes we don't want the real world thrown in our face while we're trying to have some entertainment and we're trying to sit back and just enjoy a superhero show.
Is that what you think I was saying?
Yes, Bob. No, I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I hear what some other people out there are saying too.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, no, I don't have a problem with it being a long-winded Captain America speech, and I don't have a problem with the message because I think they deserve to be there.
Yeah, I think it's a great message, and I think the messaging is important. I just felt like the speech was a little bit long, and it could have been written more tightly and more elegantly, because it seemed like, we love the Cap speeches in the comics, but they don't go on for 8 pages, right? I mean, they generally are sort of confined to 3, 4, 5 panels, and so I just felt like it sort of went on for a while, and that, of course, with a time-driven show, that means other things aren't included. And
I'm gonna say here, I would guess that if we were to take the time of that speech versus the rest of the show, it would be the equivalent of a 1-page in a 22-page comic.
I would guess not. Maybe.
So John, what I hear from Bob is he basically was Bucky. He was basically, sorry, I was texting and all I heard was black guy and stars and stripes. Is that what happened, Bob? Is that
no? But here's the thing. I think these shows are calibrated in certain way to appeal to many, many audiences, and this is what I was trying to hit on earlier. Guys like you and me and John and lots of folks out there that have grown up on Cap, we love the speechifying, and that appeals to us and it hits us in the heart, right? But these shows also appeal to folks in their 30s, folks in their 20s, folks in their teens, folks that are younger than their teens, right? Folks like kids like my son, and a more tightly, elegantly, driven message in a speech is likely to sort of resonate with sort of young attention. Kids who don't have the attention span to hang with a 1.5 to 2-minute speech, and I think it could have been more elegantly driven home for a wider audience. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I think you're right on in a lot of ways, Bob. I mean, let's go back to the moment where he's coming down holding Carly's body in that very, whether you call it angel, pieto, whatever, very religious moment. This is not just a speech. This is a sermon. All right. And so what
like
Bob's
that.
talking about here is, I believe it's called hermeneutics. It's the actual like breakdown of how you present the sermon, because you want to make sure that your message is getting across. And the moment people start realizing they're being preached to, like Bob was talking about, eyes start glazing over and people start going, whatever, and checking out. And that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing from some people. So it's not an objection to the fact that he was preaching a sermon.
Right.
It's just that he could have done a better job of it, or at least the writers that were spoon feeding it to him could have done it better.
Right. I'll say one last thing on this.
Sure.
And I don't disagree with you guys that there are people out there that are going to have that reaction. My question is, so are these people now in the future not going to watch the MCU because of it? Are they not going to watch if there's any continuing stories because of this? Heck no. They're still going to watch because it was a great story. It was great action. It was great actors, right? They're still going to, they're not going to lose anybody over this. But I think that the message that some people needed to hear got to hear it. That's all.
Yeah. No, I but those people don't watch MCU. But like, again, I'm talking about the 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds. I want them to get the message. I don't want them to tune out the message because it just sounds like some adult going on and on about stuff.
And then Bucky's reaction, besides the little joke, he did say, "Nice job, Cap," and that was cool.
Yeah, it was.
All right, we need to get to the epilogues and our predictions. So we'll take a quick break. All right, let's get to the epilogues. I'm calling epilogues because I don't think they really advanced that main story. It's the second half of the show, maybe a third or something like that. And so we're talking about the epilogue. So they're transporting the captured flag smashers, and they're supposed to take them to the raft, and where Zemo is, by the way. And we see that one of the soldiers says to them, "One world, one people." And so you kind of get in the thought, are they going to get away? And then they blow up. And then we cut to an older guy in a car, and it looks like he detonated it. And who is it other than Zemo's butler? And it's funny. I've heard some people, what show were you watching? They totally didn't remember this was Zemo's butler, and they're like, "Was that supposed to be an old Steve?" Like, what?
No.
Like, huh? No, that was Zemo's butler.
Oznick.
Thank you.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yeah. My wife was sitting right beside me and said, "Oh, it's Zemo's Alfred."
Nice. Yes. All right. So that's the first epilogue. Then we get to, and of course we cut to the raft, and there's Zemo, and he hears it on the radio, and he smiles. Okay. All right. Next one, we see John's favorite, Val Contessa, and there is with John Walker and his wife. And we were all wrong. We all thought she was going to die, the wife, right? That was an early prediction. But she's still here. So that's somebody who'll get killed later on. And
Rich much?
So I don't know why they're in the room. It appeared to be the same room where John Walker was stripped of being Captain America. I don't know what they're doing in that room. And you see him come out in the new uniform as U.S. agent. And he's very excited. Now, what I thought was interesting here is she says, Val, she says, things are about to get weird. All right. We could talk about what that means. She says, things are about to get weird. And when they do, we're not going to need a Captain America. We're going to need a U.S. agent. So interesting. Okay. And then he gets all excited and he's like, I'm back, and he's kind of acting all hypered up and dorky, and we obviously are going to see a lot more of John Walker. So we'll talk about predictions in a little bit. Thoughts on that scene?
I mean, it was great. One thing, just to say across the board, Julia Louise-Dreyfus being cast as the Contessa. I mean, that's just awesome.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. Counterpoint?
Look, I was not happy about this in the last episode, John.
Okay.
But I was watching that scene, and I enjoyed her, and I read an article. I don't remember what it was on, but it talked about how the cinematic universe sometimes likes to hire folks to play certain characters that have a certain comedic edge. And then I thought, well, gosh, I grew up. My second favorite guy is Nick Fury Sr., right? I mean, I love Nick Fury Sr. And as much as I liked Samuel Jackson playing Nick Fury, it always bothered me because I love Nick Fury Sr. and I never got to see him other than David Hasselhoff, right? And that didn't scratch the itch. But I can see. I don't know what Jackson's future is, or Fury's future in the cinematic universe. I'm sure we'll see him again, but I can see this Val and that Fury sort of playing off each other in certain ways. And as I thought about that, I thought, maybe it wasn't bad casting after all. Maybe that might work.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will play off of one another very well. And I just thought she did a great job of presenting this character, because there's a certain, the comedic edge, you're right. And of course, Dreyfus is going to bring that. But I really felt like when she was talking to John out there after the court proceeding or the Senate proceeding, and then again at the end of this episode in the epilogue, there's a certain menace that's there with Julia Louise-Dreyfus's just presentation of Val. And I'm there for that.
I'm mixed, because I think Val Contessa from the comic, and I'm just completely comparing it to the comic book. I'm not sitting it on its own by itself. She's supposed to be like a kick-ass hand-to-hand combatant. I just don't see Dreyfus, in that role. So that throws me a little bit. And also, and for everybody who's listening who isn't familiar with the comic book version, I know what I'm hearing and seeing, that people are going on to these different wiki pages and they're seeing that Contessa has an alias of Supreme Hydra, Madam Hydra, and so everybody keeps jumping to the conclusion that she's bad and she's Hydra, and it could be. I mean, that's possible. But that was part of the Nick Spencer story where the cosmic cube changed some reality, and that's where she was bad, as far as I'm aware. Everywhere else in the Marvel universe, and she's been around since the 60s, she's been a SHIELD agent, and she's been a high-ranking SHIELD agent, and she at one point was the head of SHIELD. And so she is not a bad guy for the most part in the comic universe. So just be careful what you read out there. Don't jump to conclusions. Anyway,
she did say that things were about to get weird, though. So I mean, we could be seeing some cosmic cube shenanigans. Who knows?
That's true.
But I would also say, as far as the being able to, take it to people in the fight, just like you said about the comics version, because we don't have a Nick Fury Sr. Samuel L. Jackson has been Nick Fury. He's an older guy. I think that is also very true of the Contessa, of Val. And so I'm sure she could have kicked a lot of tail when she was younger, but now she's older and she's, delegating that to people like John Walker.
All right. I could buy into that.
Yeah, in all fairness, we don't see Nick Fury doing a lot of hand-to-hand combat these days.
That's true. All right. Next epilogue is Bucky. Right? Bucky goes to make amends to, was it Yoshi? Is that his name?
I think it was Yuri, wasn't it?
Yuri, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So Bucky goes to make amends to him, and he's revealing the fact that he was the Winter Soldier and he killed his son, and to try to give Yuri closure, because that seemed to have been early on in the series something that had been haunting him. He just wanted to know why and what happened, and so now he can have that closure, and more than likely Bucky lost a friend, and probably one of his only friends at that time. Obviously Sam's a new friend, but and so he leaves, but we don't know how long he was there. We don't know how long, what was communicated after those initial remarks. That could have all been behind a closed door. It could have been very sudden and he was asked to leave. It could have been they had a longer conversation. We don't know. So I don't want to make any assumptions that that was rushed, which I've read somewhere that some people thought that.
No, I thought that was perfect. I love the ambiguity. I think, some of these, like Steve, like we don't really know what happened to Steve. That ambiguity allows us to sort of fill in the blanks on our own and the way that we're comfortable with. And it gives us a lot of things to talk about. And I think it's the same thing. We don't know what the outcome of that conversation was. And I think that's good. I think that's a good thing. I don't think we need to have everything wrapped up in a bow, right?
Right.
Yes. Agreed wholeheartedly. Don't need to have everything wrapped up in a bow and looking pretty. More on that in a few minutes. But before we get there,
can't wait.
Before we get there, the ambiguity leading to that very next scene where he's walking right past the restaurant, looking through the window, and again, the subtlety, the nuances on Sebastian Stan's acting performances, I just felt like I could see it on his face that maybe I should go in. And he's like looking at the girl that's in there that had been talking to, and they're smiling at one another, and it's that hesitation. And then he's like, no, he just turns around and walks off. And the sadness in that, I mean, just shot through the heart.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, it was because he did. He made the sacrifice there for someone else, and that's part of his redemption arc as well. And then he leaves a note for his psychiatrist, and he, the note says, "I finished the book. Thanks for all your help, Doc." And it's not to say that he's cured. It's not to say he's done on his journey. But it was, that portion of what he needed to work on was a step, and he's finished with that step. So he still has more to go. I know some people are reacting saying, oh, so now all of a sudden he's healthy and he's cured. And, no, he's not saying that. It's just, that step is finished, and, it's time to move on. And I thought it was a nice bit of closure there.
It was. I didn't have any problem with that. I didn't feel like it was saying everything's fixed now. The thing that did bother me just a little bit is the fact that was Steve's book.
Yeah.
That was Steve's book, and Bucky had it, and now he's leaving it with this therapist. I would have been much more satisfied to have him give it to John Walker and be like, all right, your turn. Time to start making some amends, fixing some things or something, or give it to Sam, or hold on to it. But to just leave it with that therapist, that felt a little bit out of Bucky's character, considering his sentimentality over that book and Steve.
I love that, John. I love that idea of him giving it to Walker. I think that's paying it forward. I could see why I see what you're saying about sentimental being about it, but I think it also was closure on his part of like, look, like the shield was the closest thing to family he had, and then the book was something that was, because it was Steve's, and it was kind of like him like saying, okay, I have to put that behind me. I have to move on with my life. So I don't have a problem with him giving away the book, but I love your idea of paying it forward and giving it to John Walker.
Yeah, I do think it. I mean, remember that talk he had with Sam in the previous episode about, he's got to let Steve go. He's got to basically quit holding on. And I think this was sort of that manifest, in a sort of a physical sort of memento. And that was, I think that was the point that was being made beyond just the crossed out names, was letting go of this, this what he had of Steve.
Did anybody else pause to take a look at the book and see what the names were on there? Because I was trying to see if I could recognize any names. I mean, I obviously saw Zemo's name, but I couldn't recognize any of the others. And I'm too lazy to look them up on some sort of Marvel wiki. So I was just curious if anybody else did.
I did. I paused it as well, but I couldn't. I couldn't recognize any off the top of my head, and I didn't take a screenshot. Otherwise, I would have wasted a whole day doing that.
Yeah.
Same.
All right, let's get to Isaiah Bradley, right? Let's get to that scene. So he goes there to visit Isaiah Bradley, and it's a touching scene. It's a touching scene where he goes and he sits in the back where Isaiah is working on his garden. And, because remember, Isaiah was the one who said, look, they're not going to let a black guy be Captain America, and any self-respecting black man wouldn't do it. And so here's Sam coming to talk with him about that. And I guess he wants a little bit of closure as well. And so, and he says to him, he says, look, we built this country. We bled for this country, and no one is going to tell me I can't fight for it. Not after what everyone before me went through, including you. So he's paying his respect. And then they go to the Captain America Museum, and there it is. There's a tribute to Isaiah Bradley, and he says they'll never forget what you did, never. And Isaiah breaks down, and what a great performance on his part. Just when he walks into the room and he sees the statue and he puts a hand on his grandson's shoulder, almost like for stability, because he's kind of taken aback. I mean, it was a really great performance, and overall, just a really touching scene. Loved it.
I'm going to say that was my favorite scene of the entire episode, right there. It was just emotionally powerful and just superbly acted. And I'm going to I'm doing it now, Rick. I'm not waiting. I'm making a prediction right now that we're going to see more of, no, we're doing it. We're going to see more of Isaiah Bradley. Now, I don't know if we're going to see him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I hope that we see more of him in Marvel Comics. In one way or the other, whether it's going back and doing a short series of adventures of Isaiah Bradley, I don't know, but I hope that we see more of him, and I think we deserve to see more of him.
All right, here we go. So the first part of that, yeah, I was all there for it. At Isaiah's house, absolutely. Loved the conversation, loved the exchange, totally down with it. And you guys are absolutely right about the performances. Carl Lumley, I believe, is the actor's name. Outstanding performance throughout all of that. And same thing with Anthony Mackie. Outstanding performances. But I want to ask Bob a question. Because, Bob, you served. If you, as a soldier, as someone who served in the military, had been experimented upon by your government and had all of your brothers in arms around you die, and you were the only one that survived, and then they kept you against your will and poked and prodded you and experimented further on you and took out your blood and kept you from your wife to the point that she died before you ever got out and saw the light of day again. And you harbored all of that. And you harbored all of that resentment. You became bitter over it to the point that you were like, I'm not down for America. I'm just here because this is my family. I got my grandson to think about it. But I'm done with all that. I hate this message. And you were that person. And they gave you a statue. Is that going to make you all feel all right? You're going to be crying and weeping and happy about it? Hell no. No.
I'm only laughing because I'm afraid, we are shortchanging our listeners because they can't see your facial expressions.
I'm watching this and I'm like grabbing the armrest to where I'm sitting and I'm like leaning back because, hand to God, I really expected Isaiah Bradley to pick up that statue and chuck it at Sam Wilson.
Yeah.
I was like, here it comes. He's done pulled the pin on the grenade. And then he does that, and I'm like, and this is what I'm talking about tying a bow on it.
Yeah.
This was all just like, so
preach,
this
brother, preach.
This is what I'm talking about tying a bow on it.
Yeah.
That this we went beyond character development and what's been laid out just in this series.
Mm-hmm.
Just with this character as it's been presented to us in these few episodes, we discard that because we got to tie a bow on it.
We got to wrap it up.
We got to make it okay. And don't tell me that statue made it all okay for Isaiah Bradley. And I want to be clear. When I was watching these episodes and Isaiah was giving Sam what for about all this stuff, I was thinking, I was like, you know what? I don't really agree with Isaiah here. I can totally see why he would feel the way that he feels, given what he's got. But I think Sam should take the mantle. I think Sam should be Captain America. I think that is some progress. And I guess it could be argued that having a statue stuck in some labyrinthine corner of the Captain America wing of the Smithsonian Museum is going to somehow be a little bit of progress. But I don't think Isaiah Bradley is going to get moved to tears about it. And so it really, really like anti-resonated with me. That was like some dissonance going on, man.
All right.
Bob, so he asked you as a former military guy, how would you feel about seeing all that?
Yeah, no, you're John. I can't dispute that at all, and I think you're absolutely right. This was an attempt to sort of wrap up a sort of a subplot, just as they tried to wrap up John Walker and give him more of a redemption than perhaps he deserved. And but like the speech, which I think went on too long, it was important, as both of you have mentioned it, and I agree that there's a messaging that's going on. And I think this epilogue was also important, messaging. It was important, to lots and lots of people out there who watched that. And
I think it was too. I agree.
Yeah, no, but I understand that.
It could have stopped at Isaiah's house. That message could have stopped there. If you were going to continue it to the wing and do the statue,
yeah,
I think you missed a really powerful moment to convey another message. It's just that whole thing about they'll never forget. How many statues do we have throughout our country?
Yeah,
to people that have done great things. MLK's probably got however many. People are going to forget. Even they'll just walk past the statue and not even take a moment.
Right.
Okay, John. I love your passion. I love your take on this.
Thank you.
I'm gonna disagree a little bit, and I'll tell you why.
All right.
Nowhere did it say that all of a sudden everything is okay. Nowhere did it say that all of a sudden Isaiah is, you know what? Let's bygones be bygones. It's one moment, it's one reaction. It's not everything's okay now.
That's heavily inferred. That's heavily inferred, if not implied.
Okay, because you know what I was thinking in the back of my mind while watching this is, okay, well, what are they going to do to make it up to him? Where are the reparations, right? 30 years of your life are gone. What are you going to do about that? So who's to say that doesn't happen? Who's to say that that story isn't there? And maybe it's an untold story. Because, maybe it's just a sentence or two somewhere in the MCU later on. I don't know, but I didn't take it as, oh, everything's okay. I took it as a step. Like we just got done talking about how there are steps that people have to take, right? And this is one step, the first step, the first meaningful step into paying the respect that Isaiah Bradley deserves for the work and the service that he did. I mean, would it be better if we didn't? Would it be better if we didn't pay that respect? Would it be better if he didn't say to him that they'll never forget?
Yeah.
I mean, what's why?
Yeah, I'm going to chime in. Yeah. Yeah, I think given that specific scenario with that particular character, and I want to be clear, yes, this has all kinds of resonance about and symbolism for racial issues in our civilization and our culture. But I want to just stress more than anything, what I'm really actually coming at this from is just as a writer talking about character. And the character that we have been presented with Isaiah Bradley in this series, yeah, I think it would have been better given the character we had up to that point, even with his beginning to change, the steps he took in and of himself in talking with Sam at the house. That statue just seems like that's too much of a leap too far, farther than the whole John Walker thing, farther than anything else. I was like, if you're going to talk about reparations being made or whatever, if you're going to try to make it up to this man, and again, his wife died. He didn't even get to see her again, didn't get to be there with her and carry on that relationship or even to bury her. What reparations? How are you going to fix that?
Well, John, there's no fixing it, but you
exactly. There is no fixing it. And if you want to try, that's great. But the trying gets to be made a little bit more personal and in efforts like that and slowly before you just say, oh, look, here's a nice gilded statue. Mm-hmm. And do you really think all the things written on that glass are really going to detail what was done to that man? No, it's going to be a nice, pretty, bow-tied story of here's this guy that served his country and was a super soldier, and they're not going to share the nasty parts.
Right.
And that's, I really believe the way that this character has been presented up to this point, that's not a moving thing. That's a slap in the face.
Okay. I respect that.
You make a compelling argument, John. I got to tell you. But maybe I'm thinking maybe this. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see Isaiah Bradley again in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I do think maybe we'll see Patriot, and maybe that last scene was more about Patriot's journey than it was about Isaiah Bradley's.
Okay, for those who are listening who aren't familiar with Patriot, Patriot is a character, is basically in the comics, it's Isaiah Bradley's grandson. And was it Elijah Bradley, I think his name's.
Yeah.
He becomes Patriot and takes up a kind of a superhero type of character. And there'll be more down the line as far as younger ones that will show up. Then there's two other scenes left. There's Sam and Bucky back at Sam's home, centered around the boat. There's a party going on. There's some music playing. It's a montage scene, kind of make you feel good. Sam's looking out at the water. Bucky comes up, puts his arm, around him. So you can see that they're friends. And it ends like it always does with the title, but this time instead of saying Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it says Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Nice ending.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm thinking in the back of my head, okay, everybody knows Sam Wilson's Captain America. His family and friends are all in danger.
And I'm thinking Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan. Right? The final scene, staring off at the sunset. It just had that feel for me. But yeah, you're right. That whole family. Sarah's in trouble. The kids are in trouble. And but hey, I think it's interesting because the family is a big part of Sam's life, just as it is for Hawkeye. But for almost every other, up until I think the final film, we didn't see much of Stark's married life, but family life is important, at least to two Marvel characters. And that's a nice insight, a nice part of their world we don't normally get to see.
That's true. All right. So then, we get to the credits. So then the mid-credits scene, which is Sharon Carter. She's up before the Senate and or the Intelligence Committee, I think they called themselves. And so Sharon is pardoned. And of course, I'm thinking at this time, wow, this seems rushed as well. As far as, I guess, we're, not that anybody alive still knows that she's the power broker. But it felt rushed, like, oh, okay, well, we're going to put the fact that she was power broker behind us, and we're going to wrap this up with a nice little bow. But they didn't. They didn't, because she's walking down the steps. She gets out her phone and she talks about how, hey, she's got a new role, and she's now going to be able to get all kinds of secrets and weapons and things like that. And let's line the buyers up. And so Sharon is revealed to be evil. Not happy with this. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, I'm a Sharon fan.
Yeah.
I've always been an Agent 13 fan. I think she's the love of Steve's life in the comics. I like how she's portrayed in the comics. What they're doing here in the MCU, not digging it. I have a theory. I'm going to get to my theory when we get to predictions. But what did you guys think of this?
My immediate reaction was it made me sad. I was saddened by the fact that she was the power broker, period. When that reveal happened, I'm like, oh. And so she's continuing that. My secondary reaction was like, okay, here's another. It's wildly disparate from the comics and whatever. But then I started thinking about her return under Wade that you guys talked about. That episode keeps coming back up to my mind when I'm looking at all this stuff and thinking about these things, because Sharon was bitter. And I'm talking about in the comics, was highly bitter and ended up working with the Red Skull, towards her own end that was supposed to be a good end. And she didn't trust him, but she still worked with him. She did some seriously questionable things. So maybe it's not quite so far removed. And then I was also thinking about why it was saddening to me as far as what you were talking about, that she's the love of Steve's life in the comics, but she's not in this MCU. They had one kiss, best we can tell.
Right.
And Steve had his moment to go back in time and to live this other life. And it wasn't her, regardless of whether people want to argue whether or not it was Peggy or not. Personally, I think it was, but doesn't matter. It wasn't Sharon. And so Sharon doesn't have that presence to bring her back from that bitterness in this MCU. So eventually I got around to accepting it, but still not in love with the idea. I don't know that she's hardcore evil, though. This may be more of a mercenary kind of thing. Okay. Shades of gray.
Rick, I'm going to defer to you on this, because I think that we are aligned on this potential theory.
All right.
I yield my time to the chairman.
All right. Prediction time. Let's get into predictions. All right. So, first of all, there has been some news that have come out talking about there is going to be a Captain America 4. Yeah. Now, they haven't assigned a director to Captain America 4, the movie, yet, but they did assign a writer, and it is Malcolm Spellman, who was the head writer for the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series. So obviously what's coming from this movie, this TV series, will directly affect Captain America 4. Now, when does that come out? Who knows? It could be 3 years from now, right? So, we don't want to wait that long. Is there going to be a season 2? Well, certainly there's enough things there that we could, follow up with. I mean, there's enough characters. We'd love to see more of John Walker and Bucky and and Power Broker and all that. So possibly, but I'm just going to throw this out there. So there was so Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige. He previously stated that some, not all, of the Disney Plus shows were being primed for multiple seasons. So could be there will be another one of this. We don't know. Now, Malcolm Spellman, who's the lead writer, he told that this series would be setting up multiple MCU projects, and at least 3 he could think of at the time, but couldn't discuss. So, what are the upcoming Disney Plus series? Right? So Loki's next. I don't see too many stories coming from this that are going to affect Loki, but possibly something in the time era. Who knows? I don't see it. What If? I'm not counting What If because I think that's just that's an animated one that's, I don't see how this is going to spin off, but it could. Then we have Miss Marvel. Possibly. I don't know. Hawkeye. Interesting. Where do we think from here something could affect Hawkeye? I don't know. Possibly Val, Contessa. Is she going to be the new Nick Fury where she's going around recruiting people? Possibly. Maybe John Walker. I don't know. She-Hulk. Possibly not. Moon Knight. Not sure. Now, Armor Wars. Armor Wars is going to be a new series on Disney Plus. And if you're not familiar with the comic book story from the Iron Man series, Armor Wars was when various pieces of Tony Stark's armors and inventory and inventions were being sold to various companies and being used for bad purposes. And he went and tracked them all down. And he did some questionable things to stop this and get them back. Could Sharon, as the power broker, be part of Armor Wars? Could she be getting Tony's stuff and selling it off? I think that's part of where one of these stories could, complete out of here. Now, here's another series that's coming out. And Bob, we're going to get back to what you asked before about Nick Fury. Is he going to be seen again? He is going to be seen again in a story called Secret Invasion. Now, the last time we saw Nick Fury, he was at the end of the last Spider-Man movie. He was shown to be in space with some Skrulls. And we all know Skrulls are shapeshifters, right? We learned that in Captain Marvel movie. And also in the last Spider-Man movie. Not hopefully giving away too much here, but the Skrulls exist. They do shapeshift, right? And so we're going to see in the Secret Invasion how different. I'm sure if now in the comic book story, Secret Invasion, the Skrulls have been on Earth for years. They've had various high-ranking people that they have taken over and supplanted, and they have been trying to work their way up into positions of power. I think by the time we get to Secret Invasion, a lot of different threads from all these different series and perhaps movies, we're going to come back and they'll be like, it was a Skrull all along. And that, my friends, is how I'm living with the fact that Sharon Carter is the power broker because she's actually a Skrull.
Yes, and that's how she can get shot in the abdomen and just be like leaning against the car like, no problem. It's just a flesh wound. It's just a flesh wound.
Just a scratch.
Man. That's a really good theory.
You like that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because you got to have something that's resonant with the existing MCU. In the Secret Invasion comics, you had these reveals and like, oh my God, these people have been Skrulls for so long and operating. And right now in the MCU, we don't have, at least not anywhere near as important a level of like an Elektra. While we have an Elektra in the MCU, nobody really knows much or cares about her, I don't think.
Right.
And Spider-Woman's yet to be seen. So you got to have somebody that's like, wow, the shock factor. And yeah, Sharon would be a good shock factor. She might even be the queen.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, that's my prediction. That's my number one prediction, guys. So let's hear yours.
I'm going to defer to Bob first here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think number one is I was disappointed that they didn't show Sam and Bucky getting in a car and one of them just moving the seat up, without being asked. I'm very, very upset about that. And I guess my prediction is, you mentioned Miss Marvel. We've seen Elijah Bradley. We know that Kate Bishop is going to be in Hawkeye. So we do see the Young Avengers starting to form up. And so maybe Val's going to have something to do with that as well. So I look forward to seeing what her role is in the formation of the Young Avengers coming soon.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. That's what I was thinking too, is about Young Avengers. Val's comment about something weird. I actually went to the what if stuff first, but I think what all you guys are cluing into about Secret Invasion is much more enthralling than just the whole, there's a multiverse kind of thing, because I don't see them bringing U.S. Agent into that a whole lot, except maybe to do a what if story. So yeah, I think you guys have got it nailed.
All right, so I'll add another prediction, which I think is it's a layup. I think it's an easy one, and that is Joaquin Torres becoming the new Falcon.
Yeah.
Right. So we saw in episode 5, Sam leaves his wings with him, says, "You keep them." So getting back to the Young Avengers, Bob, that you mentioned, I think we have Joaquin Torres introduced as Falcon. I think we have Elijah Bradley for Patriot. We have Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, right? We're going to have Ms. Marvel. Have they introduced any other characters yet that might?
Yeah, they've introduced Wanda's kids.
Oh, yeah. Wiccan and Speed.
Yeah.
So those are all coming together. All right. I have another prediction.
Okay.
All right. So we see Zemo on the raft, right? Now, there's a few other characters that, as far as I'm aware, are also at the raft. And this is from the Netflix series. So go ahead and speed a minute, guys. If you don't want to hear, if you didn't watch Jessica Jones season 3, or you didn't watch Luke Cage, I want you to go ahead and speed up in a minute, because I'm going to talk about this. So at the end of Jessica Jones season 3, Trish Walker, aka Hellcat, is taken off, and I believe it was to the raft. Okay. And Luke Cage's half brother, Willis Stryker, was also taken to the raft. Now, do I need to put 1 + 1 + 1 together? Because Zemo at the raft, Zemo was part of a group in the comic universe known as the Thunderbolts.
That's just like lightning, baby.
Right?
Yep.
And so Zemo, I think, is going to try to gather the people from the raft to create his own group to pretend to be superheroes, like they did in Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Right? And there's going to be more people sent to the raft in all those series I just mentioned. Some of these supervillains are going to be sent there. And Zemo seems to be a very, very smart man.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that he's there, does he want to be there? I don't know. Thoughts?
I think that's an amazing theory. I think we're probably also going to get a what if episode of what if Zemo went on to have a career as a dancer.
I think him and Elaine Bennis are
right?
Val Contessa doing a little thumb up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm all for it, man. I love Thunderbolts. Yeah, absolutely. Bring that on.
I don't know, man. I would love to see that, but man, it's getting pretty dense out there. There's a lot of trees in this forest, between the Young Avengers, the Eternals. We're getting a lot of superhero teams out there. So
Yeah, and we may be facing a burnout thing with the audience. Who knows? But I will say this, and I appreciate the segue because I don't know if it's so much a prediction. It's just something that I'm at least holding out hope for.
Yeah.
Up until this point with the MCU, I kind of always felt like DC had the leg up when it came to legacies. They took it a little bit more seriously, or it resonated more with me at the very least, between JSA leading to the JLA and just generational characters. But the MCU has really unlocked something here with the idea of doing a legacy. They're already doing it now with Captain America, and we're going to see Ironheart, I hear, at some point in the future, and just all this stuff. That means a lot to me. I like more grounding in the real world. People die and they don't come back. People grow old and they have to be replaced or whatever, or they pass the mantle on, like what Steve did. So I'm all for that. So the Young Avengers thing and all this stuff that they're doing, I think it's going to be some great stuff. I'm there for it. I just hope that the larger audience is still there, thus keeping people interested in them keeping doing it.
Well, if there's one thing we can say about the MCU is, and Kevin Feige, it's been done masterfully.
Yeah.
How they've assembled everything, how they've weaved everything together so that everything has importance and everything builds off of each other. And you mentioned Ironheart. That's going to be a Disney Plus series that I believe is supposed to come out right before Armor Wars. So that's probably going to make sense, how they're going to tie in together. So I think I have faith that, they're going to do it well. And then on top of that, the recent rumors of the various actors from the Netflix series that may be coming back into the MCU, bring it on, if we're going to get quality like we just saw with the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, then I see no problem.
Yeah. And if they pull the trigger on your Thunderbolts idea in the MCU, I just want to say to Marvel Comics, I got this great Thunderbolts idea. I want to write it. Bring me into the comics end of it. There you go.
Love it. Let's see it. Yeah. And then as you're the person who helped make this all happen with my idea, I get like a little slice there, maybe.
Absolutely. You can be my marketing guy.
Awesome.
and I'm a retired Marine and a stay-at-home dad now. So if you're looking for custodial services, Marvel, I'm your man.
All right. Listen, any last thoughts on the series before we wrap this up?
I really enjoyed the series. I had a good time with it, even though I know there were some things that I was picking at sometimes quite voluminously. But yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of it.
WandaVision, yeah. Falcon Winter Soldier, yeah. Bring on Loki. Loki, man, because they're knocking them out of the park.
They are. Yeah. All right. So we're going to wrap this up. Next episode is going to be episode 29, which is going to come out this Wednesday. John, you're going to love this episode because I know you're a Baron Zemo fan.
I am.
And Bob and I are reviewing Captain America 168, which is the introduction of Helmut Zemo as the Phoenix.
Yes.
And there just may be a few slices of the Power Records throughout the episode. So that'll be fun.
Awesome.
Yes. So stay tuned. That comes out Wednesday, episode 29. And for you folks out there that aren't into the comics and you want to learn more about Baron Zemo, you should check it out. All right. So as always, Bob, it's been fun wrapping cap with you. And John, we appreciate you joining us as a guest.
I appreciate being here so much, guys. I had a blast.
Yeah. Good times.
All right. That's John Waller Sewell. He's Bob Lucius, and I'm Rick Verbanis, and you've been listening to the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.